Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thugged, aka White Boy DeVoice, aka another racially ambiguous groiper. And we have a good bit of stuff to get into today. Appreciate everybody for being here. And great to get back into the thick of it, if you will, kind of coming away from the holiday season. I'm so excited to actually get more and more amped up and involved with just NAV, but also my channel as well too. Some exciting things coming. And speaking of, just some short housekeeping. Tomorrow there will be no Groiper report, but Nick, I've literally said and confused Nick and Josh's names multiple times. Josh and I will be recording IRL content, to the extent of which I won't let be known until we're done filming, but we will be meeting up IRL in Ohio tomorrow. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see what we can come up with. See how many Somalians we can get come attacking us, and what some fraud we can find out. We'll knock on some daycares here in Ohio. No, we'll see what happens with that. But let's just get right into it. We have some big moving items today. I think the most broad spectrum news of all of them is he using a voice changer? How many times am I going to get that? The most broad spectrum thing that we've gotten so far is the fact that Trump is now threatening Iran with war. This would not be surprising to anybody who's paid attention to the over and broad encompassing kind of objectives and policies that have been occurring since basically, since it's begun. Especially if you kind of pinpoint that back to the beginning and where you go back to Syria falling. But instead of getting to the nitty gritty of the geopolitical right off of the bat, that's where we are. And so the way that Trump had kind of threatened the war against Iran is also just very suspect in and of itself. Obviously, people aren't happy. I think a lot of people were ready and expecting this. Anybody who paid attention to Nick Fuentes' content, or other people like Scott Horton or Dave Smith, who kind of understand that these strategic objectives of these foreign nations, and knowing that we were going to get war very, very, very soon, very quickly, seeing how a lot of these things weren't met. And it was basically more so a kind of walk away moment for both teams to get some more ammunition before they went back and started bombing each other again, which is where we're going with that. So we'll get into that. Obviously, it's just very disappointing, but it's more fodder, I think, for everybody else who's kind of been on this bandwagon of we're continually getting more and more egg on our faces. Anybody who voted for Trump is continually met with betrayal. They're met with, this is not what I voted for. And we're continually watching as MAGA is entirely kind of shape-shifting in front of everybody's eyes. And that's probably what is driving a lot of the anger too, is just how obvious and overtly obvious it is of what's happening. I mean, they're not even trying to hide anything. Netanyahu shows up to the White House. 2 days later, we're threatening war with Iran. It's like, I mean, what does the average person kind of even take away from that? Besides, that's clearly and obviously what the conversation was about. Let alone in the first year, Trump has had Netanyahu visit the White House more times than the entire Biden presidency, his 4 years there. And so that's more of the same, if you will. We have now a growing sentiment, which is great. And I think I love this. I think a lot of people love this, actually, despite who it's coming from, which is Asmongold. I don't imagine Asmongold and Nick Fuentes are coordinating, messaging, but Asmongold came out, and now there's a circulating clip from Asmongold, particularly about the Somalian fraud here. Now, he gave his kind of statement that he wants them deported and denaturalized, but furthermore than there, he followed it up with, and I'll put it on screen here for everybody to see, quote, another Twitter meme, just what we needed. And so this is in response to the, I think it's HHS. Yes, it was the HHS or DHS putting out another meme, another kind of internet slop, if you will, some more red meat for the base, as Nick has kind of put it. But this is a growing kind of sentiment now from Asmongold and many other people, and it's good. It's no longer just coming from Nick himself, but it is this idea that we are all now well and aware that all what the department, any department is, the Trump administration entirely, is basically just, it's a song and dance. It's a performance. Everything is performative. And this is also off the back of you seeing Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem. I think it was Vanilla Ice was performing at the New Year's Eve rally with the Trump team or wherever the hell they were having it. And what you get from that is they're dancing to Ice Ice Baby. Meanwhile, we know, I mean, how many days now has it been revealed that this has been going on in Somalia? And this is just for the national consciousness of the last few days. Notwithstanding the fact that many of this has been known dating all the way back to 2014, 2015, like we talked about on the last show, which was the case in particular. One of them, the $14 million fraud scheme, was being investigated back in 2015. And that brings us to this kind of second running narrative here, which is the idea that Nick Shirley is Fuentes, but loves Jews. And I've been seeing this kind of meme going around now from, I believe it's I forget the show, but it's the very common meme where the guy's in front of the whiteboard. Like, what about this? And now this is kind of this secondarily growing theme in this narrative here, because you dig not too deep into Nick Shirley's history, and you can find that he's doing pro-Israel content. Do I think that's by itself a red flag? Yes, I would say yes, definitely. I think it's indicative of somebody who is doing something just because they want to. I mean, it could be something as simple as like, I'm a YouTuber, right? And I kind of do get a little bit of those vibes from him, like he's a good old boy. However, that does raise some concerns. And part of the reason why it raises concerns is because a lot of people have pointed out the fact that there is a Zionist kind of framing back to this, which is, I forget the specific names in the kind of their report that they had, the operation, if you will. I think it starts with an H, some foreign word I can't pronounce. But essentially, this is part of an operation for, Somaliland. And so now you have all these kind of running themes and theories there. The one thing I would add to all of that, though, is just because we are now paying attention to Somalians and the general anger towards Somalians running them out of the country, that outrage is not wrong. That outrage is more than well deserved. I think, if anything, the nuance in there is that they are throwing that in people's faces to kind of obfuscate or gum up the news cycle a little bit, so that there's this major overwhelming story that anybody watching for longer than 2 minutes that goes, wow, this is insane, we need to get rid of this. A very easy and strong distractor from everything else going on. And so one of those points would have been like the last one that we covered, which was the $9 billion we just basically taxpayers just gave to Israel for 25 F-15 jets. Hardly anybody covered it. And now here we are a couple of days later, we're threatening war with Iran over the fact that they may potentially discipline their protesters. I think specifically his Truth Social post said, if you're going to do something along the lines of shoot your protesters, that's when America's going to step in. Now, I think the best take from that was somebody who I can't remember, but I saw it earlier this morning, which was, this is the same level of intelligence if China was to attack America for the way that we would punish BLM rioters. It's like, who the hell are you? This isn't your country. This isn't your fight. What are you doing here? Get out. So there's a lot of kind of confusion around the overall element of it. And I do think the distractor is one huge portion of it. And all of this is met at the same exact time simultaneously. There's 3 different clips circulating all at once. I think they all occurred yesterday. But you have one that coming from this guy, this Jewish billionaire named Shlomo, who's considered the godfather of Israeli cybersecurity. You also have another one coming from, I forget her name. It's like Quarter, some chick. It doesn't matter. We'll get into her later. I have her name down. And then there's a third one from Florida's lieutenant governor, Jay Collins, all at once, all 3 of them together, all talking about this need for more kind of censorship. Now, Shlomo was a lot more outspoken because he said the First Amendment, and he said we need to restrict it to protect it, I believe is the language he used. And we'll get into that. But the reason I bring it up is because isn't it curious that all of this is happening literally all in the same day? And while a lot of people who are paying attention to everything are going, oh, wow, but look at what these guys are saying, what these Jews are saying about, the First Amendment. Meanwhile, the majority of everybody else is largely consumed with Somali fraud. Both are bad, but I think that it is being used as a useful tool. And I would actually also say, too, I would agree with Nick Fuentes. And it's all performative. And so not only have we had the from 2014 until 2025, where we clearly had the FBI knew about it, CIA probably knew about it, other government officials knew about it, but who gives a shit, clearly, because they weren't doing anything. And then it gets brought back into the national consciousness because Nick Shirley reports on it. So here we go. So let's start from the start point of when Nick Shirley brings it back into the mainstream consciousness of America. What's happened yet? Does anyone here have a singular name that they know of someone who has been handcuffed and charged? No. Does anybody know anything about any arrests? Has there been any progress made? Do we know when to? I mean, there's literally nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And so what you are getting is you are increasing the anger and rage from people, but you're producing no results. And this again goes in the same river that flows all in the same direction, which is all of this building up this anger, bitter, resentment, rage, frustration, and a lot of what I would say is well placed, but there's no release. There's no cathartic release to that. And I'm going to be honest, there's no cathartic release in seeing Nick Shirley have a shirt that says, 1-800-FRAW, Quality Leering Center. It's I don't give a shit about a t-shirt. I want to see these people either out of the country or put behind bars. Now, some people would say that's a moderate position, but regardless, I don't care how you get them out of the country. That needs to be the option, bare minimum. No other questions asked. So we're not getting that. So it feels performative. And that seems to be where a lot of people are pushing now, and I agree with Nick's latest take on that. And so, going and directly citing Nick, this is what Nick said. He says, all of the complaining about Somalians will result in nothing. No mass arrests, no mass deportations, nothing transformative. We all know that. This is more slop designed to rally the GOP base back to this failing joke of a government and pivot from shitting on Israel to Muslims. Now, the thing is what I would say is one thing that I can recall and specifically remember occurring not that long ago and literally around the same exact time frame was when we were very specifically focused on the H-1B visa fraud, the way that it was kind of suppressing American wages. And next thing you know, out of nowhere, Elon Musk goes oh, wow, look at those grooming gangs in Europe. And then we talked about that for the next couple of months. And all of a sudden, it just all fades away. All pressure, the news cycle just disappears. And Vivek and Elon kind of make it out just because we kind of left that. There was no ending. Kind of like how Stranger Things, they didn't get an ending. Mikey didn't write them an ending, actually. And we revisit it. And here we are once again. And we're going back to the same place. And largely, and that's what I wish I could remember the name of who I was watching earlier, but it was the same thing. And so Elon Musk has brought attention to the same issue now. He's been quoting Nick Shirley like crazy. You have JD Vance who brought attention to it, but he got attacked for it because people are instead of saying something, do something. And then more of these kind of mainstream pundits. And then you get, obviously, on the back end of that is, again, Chrissy Nome and Stephen Miller singing Ice Ice Baby at a New Year's Eve rally. And it's that's not deportations. That's not. I don't want that footage. I don't want to see the footage of Trump putting on a ball cap. I want to see the footage of an ICE member, with two hands, yanking a foreigner from wherever the hell they were and putting them to wherever the hell they belong. That's what I want to see. Now, Andy Frisella, and there's a lot of other people in this space too that are doing a really good job with it as well. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is one thing that's also been kind of, I wouldn't say alarming, but I would say it is curious to me that now part of it I would get because Marjorie Taylor Greene basically, and again, we saw how emotional her reaction was to this. Basically, everybody's calling her a traitor. You betrayed MAGA, whatever, and she's basically getting kicked out by a lot of the neocons. A lot of the regular people still enjoy her, although in the dissident right, it's hit or miss. But she's been quoting and pushing not only just a lot of the stuff from Andy Frisella, but also, I think I'm saying that right, but also the tax strike. And I'm not going to tell people one way or the other what to do about the tax strike. I think let that play out a little bit more, see what happens with that. I did like Craig. I think Craig Byers' position was that Trump should issue automatic preemptive pardons for anybody who would participate in a tax strike, just so everybody could do it, knowing that there would be no way that they could come after them. Still, it's just concerning in the element that I would wager there is still probably some element of MTG that may possibly be, whether it's directly or indirectly, controlled. Now, do I have any evidence of that? Really could only just show you a pattern of behavior. But it's just alarming to me how many times I've seen it on my timeline, MTG pushing these very specific and similar points, that I am a little bit curious about what her role is in all of this. But again, that's a side point. And then also, in addition to everything going on, so you have the censorship, you have a bunch of Jews coming out and saying that we need to censor everything. Trump saying we got to go bomb Iran if they don't allow the protesters to run rampant. And basically what you're getting, and what a lot of people, and what I believe too, and Cutler also put this out earlier as well, is these protests. I mean, I would put, just like Clint said, I would put everything I own on the fact that these protests didn't just spring up organically. I would put a lot of money, and especially given the fact that what we knew after the 12-day war was that the reports on the ground was that the Iranian regime had strengthened. Like the people there were all they had unified them. So these protests come out of nowhere, that makes no sense at all. And so my suspicion would be that more than likely these protests are inorganic. They're being backed by the United States and Israel. And what it really is, this threat here, is if they're on the ground, CIA, Mossad, FBI backed, color revolution isn't successful from the groundswell, well, we'll just take you out regardless. So we're getting regime change one way or the other. And so ultimately that is the play. And here we are. And so overwhelmingly so, a lot of people are just dismayed. I mean, Balfour Again award, I think, is almost becoming an understatement for this. And it's now overtly public for anybody with a, room temperature IQ and can literally breathe, that Trump is an entirely controlled asset. And this has been no more than a installation of 4 years of proxy governing from a foreign nation, then that foreign nation being Israel. And it's just a lot. So there's a lot moving here. And I think we'll start here with, again, going back to the Nick Shirley thing. So going back to Nick Shirley, this push here, that this idea is that he's potentially, fed Slop. And so we're going to watch this video from James Lee, who kind of connects some of these points here. Because now we're getting reports, just in this first line here, that the Israeli media is now reporting that Mossad was the first to uncover the Somali daycare fraud in Minnesota. And then he continues, coincidentally, Israel just recognized Somaliland with plans to build a new military base and relocate Palestinians there. And so that's what I had mentioned in the very beginning there, which was, it appears that this was an orchestration for the benefit of those with a Zionist belief, or to further the aims and goals of Zionists. And so this is James Lee. This is somebody who's been generally attached to Ian Carroll. I'm not sure really where he came out of. I think he recently lost his job as well too. But it's a pretty solid, short video here.
So it turns out one of the most viral stories of 2025 about the Somali daycare fraud in Minnesota ends up being a complete psyop. Because evidently, Israeli reporters are now asserting that Mossad and Israeli intelligence, not U.S. authorities, were responsible for exposing the Somalian-ran Minnesota fraud operations.
How is the Israeli Mossad related to the recent corruption that was discovered in Minnesota? You're not going to believe it, but there actually is a substantial connection, and it runs through the Israeli Prime Minister office. I'll start from the end. Israel just established relationships with Somaliland, which is not Somalia.
And what does that mean? Let's take a listen.
Does anyone know what Somaliland is, really? Said US President Donald Trump after Israel became the first country in the world to recognize the self-proclaimed republic in Eastern Africa. Somaliland is a small territory in the Horn of Africa that broke off from Somalia in 1991. So why does Somaliland even matter? It sits on the Gulf of Aden, one of the world's most important shipping routes. There's also a Gaza-related angle. Earlier this year, it was reported that the US and Israel have explored Somaliland as a potential destination for displaced Palestinians from Gaza.
And bingo, that is why we've been hearing so much about Somalian fraud in Minnesota, because it had already been reported weeks before by the US attorney that fraud in Minnesota exceeded $9 billion. $9 billion, that's a whole lot of fraud compared to, what was it? Nick Shirley talked about $110 million, $9 billion. We're talking about a small fraction, but focusing specifically on the Somali community. And then you have the amplification of this story, which isn't necessarily organic, right? You have people like Elon Musk, Vice President J.D. Vance, Attorney General Pam Bondi, all amplifying this story. I'm not discounting that the fraud exists within the Somali community, but is the focus, is the amplification making us feel a certain way or trying to make us feel a certain way about the Somali community?
And it almost always certainly is. And so just to give you a taste of like where the idea is, and I believe he goes slightly into this kind of idea of what Israel's really wanting to do with Somaliland. And I think if you dig deeper into the report papers, which I don't think he shows any here, unfortunately, is it does talk about how, making it another essentially kind of like a vassal state almost, for another place for the Jewish diaspora to run rampant. And so the end goal is there. I would have to dig a bit deeper into, but just to bring it to your attention that now there's like competing kind of ideas of why this is being brought up. And at the end of all of it, though, we are kind of sitting here once again waiting for like, when does the shoe drop? When are we going to get anything from this? When does it move from performative outrage and influencers talking about it online with nice nifty videos to arrests and seeing people actually getting put behind bars? So time will tell, but I think we already have our answer there with what's ultimately going to happen with that. And I'm also thinking about it at the same time. I think they are running out of ammunition with what they can do with that. I think there's only so many times that you can kind of dance in front of a population with very strong performative outrage kind of stuff like this before the populace is like no longer going to like take it. They're not going to take the song and dance anymore. And we might already be there, to be honest with you. And so one thing I would cover too, there's a good video you can see from Warren Smith as well that covers this from Nick Shirley. But he covers it a bit more from the right and left perspective, which I'm like just generally less interested in. But when he does cover it, I mean, the way that the CNN responds to Nick Shirley and the way that they're like talking to him, it's like, Lord have mercy. You have the CNN reporter who like can't even get a sentence out. She says something to the effect of like, do you think that you're true? That what you're doing here is true? And Nick is like, yeah. Like he didn't even know how to answer the question because she's wording it so poorly. But also like, CNN now they're coming out of the woodwork. Now they're going to, instead of actually investigating the Somalian fraud, they're investigating Nick Shirley's claims. So that's when they're going to come out of the woodwork. It's like, oh, nice, wonderful. Okay. So there is also this general push that is generally true, which is the fact that a lot of random people are becoming the media. People are looking to literally any other source doesn't have 3 letters in the name to go figure out and get news from. This is kind of the TikTok phenomenon as well too. And I would wager a lot of people have learned more from some random person they came across on TikTok or on a YouTube short than they've ever learned from a person who makes money, from a living off of it. And so these things all combined ultimately reside and rest in a populace of people who are increasingly getting more and more and more irritated. And at the same time, you look into the side of that population, the ones that are very, very irritated, that seems to be one of the only few things that actually unites them. Or is a similar concept between all of them. Because then you dig deeper, then you have like disaffected, dissident white Christian nationalists. Then you have disaffected, just Black Americans. Then you have just this like the MAGA Black Americans. Like I don't even know anybody who's like in that crowd, to be honest with you. But there's all these different like ones, and we're kind of seeing when this is what happens when you have a multiculturalistic society. And now at the top, because they are appealing to the general so much, everyone else, all the collectives on the back end. And here we are. And it's unfortunate because I do think that's what's not underpinning, but driving more of this push for people to go no taxes. And again, we saw Savannah Hernandez, many other people just immediately say like, we're done. I've seen Salvin Bra, brother, who I actually like a lot, pushing this stuff too. I would just say I'm not going to give advice one way or the other. I think most people probably have an idea what I'm going to ultimately do, but I would say make that choice yourself, let it play out a little bit longer. Because we know how it goes. If a Somalian doesn't pay taxes, they got off scot-free. In fact, probably give them another BMW. You don't pay your $84 you owe the state of, Wisconsin. I mean, like you're going to jail for 7 years because you're white. So make that choice with your own kind of, yourself in mind, your family in mind. Moving on to like one of the other bigger things. Also, make sure you smash the like button. 100 people watching, only 30 likes. I can only assume 70 of you are gay. The Nick Weapon, dude. Crazy, man. Crazy how I can prepare all day and like literally not say words. Joel Webbon and Nick Fuentes sat down and this was much needed. And what was crazy about it and what was awesome about it was before, I don't know if everybody even knows this. I put it in the Discord. My phone blew up on New Year's Eve, actually, around like 8 p.m. Israel targeted me for whatever reason. That's a joke. I don't need to be sued. Or who knows, really. It's satire. It's comedy, actually. But anyways, Israel rigged my phone. It literally blew up on New Year's Eve. It was the craziest thing ever. It's in the kitchen, and I hear my brother go, like, why is your phone doing this or whatnot? I'm like, what are you talking about? I go out there. It's like almost a circle. I got a new one finally yesterday morning. But before my phone had blown up, I had seen the thumbnail picture from Joel Webbon and Nick Fuentes. And I was super excited about it. Now, I had an idea that it was coming, but when I had seen it, I was like, this is amazing. So I immediately quote the post, and I was like, this is a visual representation of Ben Shapiro and his Jewish cronies not being in the conversation anymore. Joel Webbon liked it, and he followed me, and I thought that was pretty cool. And maybe that was the triggering point, was Joel Webbon followed me, and now they're like, all right, get him, boys. But I watched the first episode, and I thought it was really good. I think that there is a lot of people who are maybe irritated by the fact of what they feel is de-escalation or is also containment. Now, this also is coming from the same people who have always been opposed to Nick, and I think even people who have been opposed to Joel Webbon. I appreciate both Nick and Joel Webbon, and I'm somebody who consumes from both sides of the aisle, from both the Stone Choir crowd and the Joel Webbon crowd. And some of you might not know there's a difference, but there's like two kind of distinct crowds, and what you'll see is the people who like Joel Webbon seemingly also like Nick, and it seems the people who typically like Stone Choir are also the same people who don't like Nick, and so there's very similar kind of value sets being shared here. Now, there are still differences between Nick Fuentes and Joel Webbon, and I think many people saw that in the first episode. I think right off the rip, one of the first ones is very easily noticeable. Is even Nick admits that he's probably more liberal and socially liberal than where Joel Webbon is, and this is kind of explored in the fact that they talk about the death penalty. And when they talk about the death penalty, I think Nick makes some very, and in my opinion, I agree actually, that the death penalty does need to be heavily reserved. And the only thing that would actually change that for me, and newsflash, you guys are going to get a kick out of this, is because I too also do share the strong sentiment of that it is better that 10 guilty person goes free than one innocent person suffer, especially at the hands of injustice. But I would add to that too, I don't think that I could say I wouldn't put anything forward at all about the judicial system until we get a federal national ban on women being judges. That's the first thing. I won't nothing. I mean, like, the judicial system is literally flawed. Until women are disbarred from being judges, then there's I don't care. It's a broken system regardless. How could you give someone justice and a woman was presiding over them as judge? Like, that's a literal, that's a punishment from God, actually. I don't think we should be installing that, into the American judicial system. But that was one of the things that they explored. And it was a death penalty. Nick was a lot more, against it and reserved to it, but ultimately said there are kind of instances where he thinks that it'd be a very easy kind of case there. Joel Webbon, I think, was citing a bit more of kind of Old Testament law, but more specific. And it was a good conversation. I enjoyed the first one. It was kind of more so like America First meets Christian nationalism. I thought it was a good kind of way to break the ice on the conversation. They did both kind of agree on the idea that the Constitution needs tightened up a bit. I think specifically they were mentioning installing the Nicene Creed as a preamble to the Constitution, or they were both seemingly in agreement that the Constitution does need to be, whether you want to say rewritten or just in otherwise kind of maybe more honoring of God, having a stronger Christian taste on top of what it already is. And I thought that was pretty good too. And I do think one thing that was out there that I think most people have already accepted, but it is the fact that America First is the new tagline. Like, when you're looking for someone who's actually right wing, you're looking for America First. You're not looking for Republican. You're not looking for MAGA. You're not looking for conservative. You're looking for America First or America Only, or both. I mean, that's what you're looking for. And that seems to be, that is now kind of like America First is the title, or what would you call it? The objective, if you will, the descriptor. When you're looking for somebody and you need to know, this is the thing I need to see. Same way it's the other way around, right? When you see Hebrew in someone's profile, to walk away, you see somebody was I took my trip to Israel. That's one of those things. The other way is, though, you see the America First and you go, okay, Okay, this brother might be decent. Now, even with that, though, we all know now at this point, given the fact that Nick is continually rising, given the fact that he has clearly found a way to articulate the dissident right in a way that the mainstream will accept it, he's obviously under attack and continues to be so. And one of those warnings, though, was the skin suiting of him. And be ready for them to try to skin suit America First as the movement and essentially kind of replace him out a little bit. And I do think that is a good thing. And I'm glad that Joel Webbon also recognizes that on the tagline. But that's also, I think, partly what's at the play here with Nick Shirley. And it's kind of quite odd that they have the same name. I could feel that up to coincidence, though. There's a lot of people named Nick. But that does seem to be what also is a little bit of what's being promoted from Nick Shirley. And so there was a clip that floated from the PBD interview that he did with Nick Shirley, literally like I think a day or two ago. And that was a lot of the vibe that people got. Because in there, he makes the statement talking specifically, and thank you for being a watch, appreciate you, brother. He makes a statement in there where he was like, I don't have any vices. He's like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I love God, I'm a Christian, I'm a straight white man, I want to pursue marriage. And so he was saying like all the kind of the things that you would hear from Nick. And then he answered too, like, what would they have against me? Like, what can they attack me for? And I think a lot of people saw that and they were like, is it not Breland Holyhand? I don't think anyone's kind of said, this is the new Charlie Kirk or anything, but I think a lot of people are feeling that energy. Like this guy's being promoted and supported. And they feel like, is that an attempt to maybe boost him and amplify him in a sense that he's a more, I guess, moderate option or a more pulled back option from Nick Fuentes. And so I'm not really sure about that. I do think that's very easy to kind of pick up on that. And I wouldn't be mad at anybody for thinking that, but I'm not sure if that's really what the direction is. I do think he's kind of a useful tool, but I don't think Nick Shirley has even the slightest bit of oratory skills to be anything close to a commentator. And I think that's why he does YouTube, honestly. And I didn't to be mean or rude to the guy, but when he was sitting there trying to have a conversation with Patrick Bet-David, I'm telling you what, it was a struggle. It was a very strong struggle. And even when he responds to reporters too, like the guy's struggling to string words together. And it's not me being mean. Obviously, I struggle to speak sometimes too. But to think like somebody like that, who would probably need to like spend 5 years like speaking in front of a mirror to get the cadence down, in no way, shape, or form is going to compete with Nick. So I just doubt that. And I would say too, the overall feel of the episode was awesome. I enjoyed it a lot. And the overall feel of the episode was one where, for what felt like the first time, was Joel Webbon was having a conversation with Nick, the commentator. He wasn't having a conversation with Nick Fuentes, the anti-Semite. And that was, I think, a good positive move in the right direction, which is basically, and we all know this, right? Bradley Martin and all these other guys, and credit to them. I think they're doing great things, and I'm glad Bradley had him on. That's another wing half. They were still all kind of sensationalizing off of the scandal that is Nick. It's scandalous. Oh, it's the biggest drop. And then on the other end, it was like, when it's Piers Morgan or if it's Steven Crowder, they're still sensationalizing it. But from the other way, it's like, we're here because we're showing the contrast between us and Nick. And we're going to have a conversation. We're going to show we're not scared. We're big bad, But the one with Joel Webbon was like, this was a conversation because it felt like Joel actually wanted to hear where Nick was at. Like, what are Nick's positions? What do you actually think about these things? And I appreciated that because in all the other ones, it was more so like in the Bradley Martin ones, it feels like, and would you do this with Jewish people? Would you? Is he going to say it, guys? Like, that's kind of like the vibe that I would get. And it's not to be rude to Bradley or anything. But also in the same breath, like the ones with Piers Morgan, it was like, it's clearly like, this is the clip farming. Here's the greatest hits, Steven Crowder, greatest hits. And to them, it was like, they weren't wanting a conversation with Nick. They didn't really care or hear what he was going to say. What they wanted to do was they wanted to put on a show for their audience. With Steven Crowder, he had to put up or shut up for how many times he said he was going to, his people need to interview Nick better. That's why he had to do it. Piers Morgan, because he runs a show called Uncensored, with Piers Morgan, and he had to bring on the most censored guy of all time. For him, it was like, we got to do my, fan service, if you will. And so I appreciated that a lot. And so I'm curious to see what the rest of this will become. I almost don't want to pay the $10. Well, I probably should just to support them. But I almost don't want to pay the $10 because I don't want to watch it all at once. I'd rather kind of wait and watch it as it comes out every week so I can also be in tune with the general reaction of everybody who's watching it as well too. And it looks like they're all going to be an hour long, but it was good, really good. And so I'd recommend it's on X. You can find it under Joel Webbon's account. I would recommend anybody go watch that. It's really good. So moving on though, we're going to get into some of the meat of today actually. And so the meat of today is the fact that I am, well, me, but also everybody here too, and probably I think the majority of America at this point, we're really getting tired of all of these Jews coming across the pond to tell us what and how we should speak and how we should have laws and what our rights should be. And so we'll just start here. So this is the first one. This is Shlomo Kramer, a Jewish billionaire, who said that the First Amendment must be eliminated. And so what we're going to look at here first, this is Jake Shields actually quoting Sovereign Braw's take on it, but it does have the video in there. Let me put it on screen. This is Jake Shields. And Jake Shields is obviously a new to the scene, was red pilled a couple years ago kind of guy. I like a lot of what Jake Shields has done with his podcast. Like I reference all the time. One of the best podcasts I think I've ever listened to in my entire life is when he was talking and sitting down with a black nationalist. And I would recommend that episode for every single person, especially those who are a lot more aligned with the higher tenets of white nationalism. Specifically because hearing the complaints of a black man who was taking his own side and had no beef with white people was one of the most like wild things to listen to in my entire life. Because, and I'll say it again, just to give people a Snickers-sized bite of this, was when he started talking about how all the commercials that he sees is a black woman with a white man. And it hit me like a freight train when I had realized, like, wait a minute. You're telling me it's not all going one way. It's actually targeted per the actual demographics who are watching the content. And so just in there, I was like, oh, so it's not just that they're trying to racially kind of like grow resentment and hatred just in whites. It was like they're also actually doing it in the black population as well too. It's a great episode, and I wish I could remember his name, but it is on Jake Shields' podcast. Anyways, the Jake Shields quote here of Sovereign Bra, of the Jewish billionaire telling Americans what they should do. He says, there is a worldwide Jewish conspiracy to end free speech as we know it. They can already throw you in prison in Australia and Europe for having the wrong opinion. America is the last hope, and they are taking control of all the information as we speak. Now, Sovereign Bra, what he says here, and I liked his, a lot of people have had comments about this, but I like Sovereign Bra's comments the most. And you might find that you go back at, some of my early stuff, I quoted and put up Sovereign Bra stuff a lot more. He's had a bit of an issue with, I think, his grandmother, and so he's kind of been in and out of the space, if you will, the political space. But Sovereign Bra writes, the Jewish billionaire Shlomo Kramer says the freedom of speech must be eliminated in America, and that we need to control all of the social platforms. He says governments must control what people are allowed to say in order to prevent polarization, and AI will be essential for achieving this. He then says America needs to adopt a Chinese-style system of control over people's speech, and governments can buy tools from companies like his own in order to do it. So here's what I'm going to step in on this one, actually, very particular on this one. This one is the reason why I've like this. For one, obviously it's more of the same, and it's not like it's anything very staunchly different than what we've seen. But here's why it's a little bit different. Is I find this particularly interesting for him because what we'll see in this video clip is he's talking specifically about the AI. And he's talking about the because of AI, these are the reasons why we need to have protections. And so it's less about anti-Semitism from him here, actually. He's more so talking about the AI element of things, and that we need to make sure that we are, restricting the First Amendment. We're cutting it up to better protect it, which is just a big load of shit. But what happened the same day that this clip started circulating? Anybody who was on X, it was a big trend with AI. Everybody was asking Grok to do something. Was anybody on X last couple of days? Well, the trend was that people, my whole timeline was flooded with this. It was people taking photos of girls and saying, Grok, can you put her in a micro bikini? Grok, can you take this girl? Can you put her in a transparent mini bikini? Then you had the OnlyFans girls themselves doing it to themselves, which is a boatload of what I was seeing on the For You page. Millions of impressions. Now, there was one in particular that I can't tell if it was a troll post or she was actually concerned, but it was a girl who had quoted it that had happened to her. And she says, how is this legal? And it's a screenshot of somebody asking Grok, can you put this girl in a bikini? And it was a photo that she had posted on her page. So what's the connection here? Well, you have a lot of people immediately, all in one day, all out, literally out of nowhere. Grok's had spicy mode for how long? And all in one day, like for like a 2-day trend, boom, all you can see, it's like news, dude, like another like half naked photo. News, boom, another naked photo. Like, that's crazy. Almost my belief would be that was that an inorganic push and a trend to push all this out to make people think like, oh my gosh, AI is out of control. Are you serious? I can just log on to X and Twitter right now and ask Grok to take this girl's clothes off and it will? Oh my goodness, we have to restrict that. That's where my mind was at when I was seeing this, was like, holy shit, they're like in real time doing these operations and carrying this out. Now, again, what evidence do I have? I don't. But I would say just the patterns here, given the pattern of behavior, the historic pattern of behavior, I would say that that is, to me, very deeply concerning, that they are trying to essentially manipulate, as they always do, the social media platform, specifically with AI, to convince people to give up their rights, because in a flurry of like in 24 hours. Meanwhile, what we could do is just like ban porn. I would just like ban porn, like, but that's the one position that they won't move to it. So it's, we got to do this song and dance and performative dance to like, well, we'll censor this and this. Anyways, here's the video. And again, pay note to how much he's focused on the AI element. And again, Shlomo Kramer, Jewish billionaire, is considered by some the godfather of cybersecurity intelligence there in Israel.
Shlomo Kramer, also one of the founders of Checkpoint, another big cyber company. Shlomo, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
How is AI, cyber warfare, shaping geopolitics right now?
So AI is going to revolutionize cyber warfare, is revolutionizing cyber warfare from critical infrastructure to the fabric of society and politics, and undermining it, giving unfair advantage to authoritarian governments against democratic countries. First Amendment
donor, I
type
believe.
of...
That's already happening?
That's already happening. You're seeing the polarization in countries that allow for the First Amendment and protect it, which is great. And I know it's difficult to hear, but it's time to limit the First Amendment in order to protect it. And quickly before it's too late.
What do you mean?
I mean that we need to control the platforms, all the social platforms. We need to stack rank the authenticity of every person that expresses themselves online.
He does sound like Arnold, doesn't he?
And
That's
take control over what they are saying based on that ranking.
The government.
The government
should control the social media.
Should do that. And we need to educate people against lies, and government need to develop cyber defense programs that are as sophisticated as this.
So that's the extent that, the big, the scandalous part he said already, which is, we need to restrict the First Amendment to better protect it. And again, this is, Shlomo, what a name, first of all. But Shlomo Kramer, he founded, I believe, the Cato Networks, co-founded, which is there on screen. He was also, I believe, he created Checkpoint, and there's a couple other ones, like, I think when I saw in his description, it considered him a serial entrepreneur, something like that, which is funny because it's like I guess he just makes a bunch of businesses, then sells them out and turns them over. And so it seems to be where he's at. And I think he's like ranked like 1,400. He's like in the top 20 of billionaires in Israel, which is insane to think that small of a nation has that many billionaires. But again, I don't find that surprising given the preponderance of evidence here. Now, the crazy thing is, though, well, who is he, right? And so beyond just being this kind of this big Jewish billionaire coming over and being like, well, let's hear this Jewish opinion of like what we should do with AI and like how we should, control the First Amendment. And of course, he's a foreigner, so it's like that means nothing to him. But also, you'll find that he previously served in the IDF, but not just the IDF. Shlomo Kramer was a member of the Unit 8200, which is the very notorious, extreme, hush hush wing of the IDF. They're one of their partner and sister organizations, the Mossad. And it's once again, it's very obvious. You just dig into the history of this, but you also sit here and go, why is CNBC concerning themselves and wanting to know what a Jewish oligarch would do to the First Amendment when he doesn't even live here? And you'll find that this trend continues and exists throughout the rest couple of these people, except for Jay Collins. But where does he go to school? Well, he went to the university, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Wow, that's crazy. Almost like a lot of other people who constantly get spread around in the mainstream came from that university. Just like the other individual we're going to talk about, who also had another video circulating from her, Jordana Cutler. And who's Jordana Cutler? Well, this about knocked my socks off. Because I was today years old when I learned that Meta, so meaning Facebook and Instagram, has a Jew department. I'm not even, now it's not called that, but it's essentially, it might as well be. But that's who Jordana Cutler is. She's the head of the Jew department for Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. So I see this and I'm looking like, so who is this lady who's saying all this stuff? And it's like, oh, this is Meta's head of the Jew department. What? What? And no joke, but thank you for the super chat. He said this gut's name checks out. Yeah, it does. It's very funny. So let's go do the Meta's. Her title actually is Head of Jewish Diaspora. Let me find the actual. I had the fuller title somewhere in here. Meta's Public Policy Director for Israel and the Jewish Diaspora. That is this lady's title. Okay. Let's just watch this video first, and then I'll give you some more details about who this person is. But this is the video. This is one that was circulating. I saw it quoted from Bizlet, which says, "You better not say Jews run the world, or we will use our position of running the world to shut you up." And that is what she says here in this short little clip, giving a speech at whatever the JNS is. I'm seriously, like, there are so many Jewish organizations, I cannot literally keep up with them. There are so many. So many. But anyways, here she is.
In addition to my work leading the Israel public policy team, I created a new role specifically focused on the Jewish diaspora. It is a privilege to represent Meta to Jewish communities worldwide. I am proud that Meta's commitment to addressing anti-Semitism on our platforms has remained steadfast, especially after October 7th. Our policies are industry-leading in protecting Jewish people and Israelis on our platforms. Our community standards include policies that prevent harassment, violence, and incitement, and include a robust framework to combat anti-Semitism. Our hateful conduct policy includes specific protections for Israelis and Jews. We banned Holocaust denial and distortion back in 2020. We changed industry thinking on this issue, designating denial as hate speech rather than misinformation. It wasn't just about facts, it was about protecting people from harmful conduct. We banned content with harmful stereotypes about Jews, such as the claim that Jews run the world or other major institutions. We updated our policies to recognize that the term Zionist can be used as a proxy for Jews and Israelis. We banned content claiming Zionists run the world or control the media. We do not allow for dehumanizing comparisons of Zionists. It's a delicate balance between safety and expression. My role is to ensure that the voices of Israelis and the Jewish community are heard in this policy-making process.
You know what's crazy is, like, I could have swear to God, I think the only voices I've heard in the last 2 years are Jewish voices. Are there any voices left? Are there any voices left besides Jewish ones, actually? But Cypher's Basement, thank you for the super chat. He says, how do you reconcile living alongside such evil? And that's kind of the part of it, right? I think this, I did not to turn this into like some massive or like a big kind of like, Christian lecture, but what I would say is this too, like, there ultimately is no end goal on earth that's like we are, completely free of like evil. We can do things that like protect us and put us out of like being a part of like systemic evil and corrupt organizations, definitely. The only unfortunate thing is it's like, this is just this is a fallen world, right? This is how earth functions. It is just naturally full of a bunch of fallen men, and the world is essentially Satan's domain. And so with that, there is a level of like nuance here, which is understanding that ultimately there is only so far you can run from evil, right? But it's not to say we should just sit there and accept it and take it. I would never push those nihilistic, God wins in the end. I mean, he does, but people use that as like, well, what are we going to do about it? Like, I don't agree with that. There are things that we can do about it. We can actually pursue justice in the temporal sense, as in we should, we are commanded to. And that's kind of the issue, is that we're not right now. Let me do this other one. Apologize. There's somebody else had one in here. Chartard. That's funny. It's supposed to be Charizard, but Chartard, I like it. Limit your First Amendment rights, and here's infinity gorillas. Yeah. I tell you what, I've been seeing some people defending Trump, and I sit there and go, maybe we should be ruled. Maybe this nation should exist. Actually, but kidding, not in a true sense there. But, who is she, right? Who is this person? Oh, clicked on the wrong thing. Well, her name is Jordana Cutler. And like I had said at the beginning, this woman is the head of the Jewish diaspora. No, where's the actual title? She's Meta's public policy director for Israel and the Jewish diaspora. Now, if we were looking things through the left and right lens, I think the first thing that somebody would bring up would be, where's the Palestinian head of department? And to that I say, no, F both of them. We don't need one. Where's the American department? where's the American meta department? It's like it doesn't exist. So let me get this out of here. Okay. And that's not what we're in the business of doing today. It is more so the fact that there shouldn't be any department at all that's concerning itself, period, with global policies. But that is part of what we are seeing with these social media conglomerates, these big, these monopolized systems. And this is part of what was in the discussion about 4 or 5, 6 years ago, which was that you do have increasingly that these social media companies are wanting to make money, make profits, and so they're expanding and they have global reach. They're not limiting themselves to only existing in America. And so in doing so, they've also extended themselves out to being a part of the global audience. And now their consumer base is now more so the rest of the world than it is America, right? There's only 330 million Americans. But if you're selling Facebook around the world, India is probably your number one customer, right? You probably have more Indians than you do Americans on the platform. And this is obviously, this provides for these extreme conflicts of interest. Now going into the minor form though, who is Jordana Cutler? And why is she, and she's dictating public policy there at Meta, which is based in America. The downside of it is, what are her interests? And her interests clearly and obviously would not be American, not by a long shot. And so you just do the slightest bit of digging in here, and well, the first thing that you find is that she literally was an advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu in 2016. Do you think that do you think that that person, just knowing that one fact alone, do you think that that person is more than likely concerning themselves with the interests of America? Or are they more concerned with the interest of Israel? Furthermore, she also worked in the strategy department of the Likud party's 2009 campaign. Furthermore, she served as the chief of staff at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. Furthermore, she got her master's degree from where? The Hebrew University in Jerusalem, the same place that Shlomo Kramer went to. None of that in the slightest makes me think that, wow, she's very American. She has very strong American, ideas. Interest. That's what she would push for. She'd really push for the American idea of what the First Amendment is. And so what do you have her here? She's here giving a press conference or whatever the hell the JNS is, talking about why they're banning all content that goes against Zionists. Who do you think that serves better? Does that serve the people of America more, or does it serve the people of Israel more? It's an easy answer. And the quote, literally, and so this is a quote, no joke. This is a quote I pulled from Wikipedia, but it's also in the Jerusalem Post as well too. So, and there's two of them. So this is one from Wikipedia. Quote, this is about the role here at the company. Quote, a role that she created at the company and that has no parallel in any other high-tech company. And now at this point, I'm kind of concerned, like, is there like a Jew department at X? Probably. That's just like it might not be titled that, but I'm sure there might be one. And then in an interview with the Jerusalem Post, quote, this is from Cutler again, quote, My job is to represent Facebook to Israel and represent Israel to Facebook. So if that's her job, what the fuck is she doing talking to Americans and telling us what to think? How about even better? How about those rules can apply to people in Israel, and then if you're on Facebook in any other part of the world, those rules don't apply. But that's not what they're doing. These rules apply globally. Interesting. And the whole topic here is that you're banning stuff that talks about how Jewish, at the very minimum, you would be talking about how pro-Jewish sentiment essentially is like the untouchable subject. And they're saying people who push that are going to get banned. Is that not ironic? Now, if they wanted to sit there and be like, well, okay, we'll ban anything that's negative to Jews in Israel, I could give a shit less. But the problem is they want to extrapolate that and extend it to the entire world. What does the average person think when they see that? Oh, dude. Oh my gosh, dude, man. It's a good thing this Jew stepped in to protect the rest of the world. Man, dude. Because the rest of the world almost saw all this stuff talking about how Jews run everything, but it's a good thing the Jew stopped it. Who has this one position that literally no other high-tech company has. It's a joke, man. It is a joke. And the thing is, it's getting very, very, very publicly and overtly obvious. And I apologize, my chat's a little busted, so I can't scroll down, unfortunately. Cyber's Basement says, tip your local strongman. Let's go, 20K subscribers. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, very close, actually. I've been like teetering right at the like 19.8 something. I should hit 20K here soon. I just want to have more than my previous partner, to be honest with you. And, but again, a lot of people see this and then their first response goes, what about the Palestinian department? That seems uneven. We should have if that is your framing, that the resolution to there being a Jew department at Facebook is that we also need an Arab department, you're missing the point. That's not actually the direction we should be moving. The direction we should be moving is, how about neither, actually? How about we take our own side? How about we as white Christian Americans take our own side? Neither. But we have the American department. Yeah, don't know the lore. I mean, I wouldn't get into it too much now, but yeah, I just had a previous partner that I was with who we didn't see eye to eye on a lot, and it went very similarly to how the Owen Schroyer and Alex Jones ones went. I was screaming Israel at the top of my lungs, and the other guy said, you just hate Jews. And that is the story in the nutshell, actually. I think you guys probably can pick up the rest of the pieces. And this is the best part too. Where does Jordana Cutler live now? In Modin, Israel. Dude, if you live in another country, save your opinion about America. If you don't live here, that's awesome, dude. The last thing I want to hear from you is what you think what we should be doing. Listen, I already got the Somalians who are actually here, right? It's like, if I'm going to listen to anybody, actually, I'll at least hear out the Somalian who's running a fake daycare in Minnesota, because he's at least on the soil, at least standing on the ground here. It wasn't Chuck. Chuck was a different one, actually. Me and Chuck probably are on better terms than the other guy, to be honest with you. But this is what the problem is. And this is what actually is where Nick comes in. This is what highlights the framing of what this problem is here we are once more. A conversation, an idea, a policy, an ideology, all being conversed, talked about, and enforced while no white Christian Americans are around. And then if you do attempt to have that, you get the Tucker cost. which is 45. I mean, we're still going out, to be honest, but it's 45 straight days of what felt like you would have thought the second Holocaust happened. And and everybody sitting here knows it. The way they reacted to it. Oh, Lord have mercy, dude. Woe is me. Oh, Tucker. I mean, quite frankly, and something that's still not been followed up on, I mean, Josh Hamer literally made a specific threat against Tucker Carlson. Threat, but I mean, he incited, I would say he incited violence at the bare minimum. We need to neutralize the fox in the hen hole. Really, dude. Really, what do we do with those? What do we do with foxes and hen holes, dude? Do we pet them? We pet them nicely. We tell the fox, no, fox, you shouldn't be doing that. We'll help you. We'll healthily help you out of here, and we won't harm. Like, it's so fucking retarded. And I don't mean to curse. I need to get better about that. But it's just like, we all see it. It's very obvious. And again, Jordana Cutler. This next one is Lieutenant Governor of Florida, Jay Collins. And so this is another one here. And so this is just a very short one, but it's all about speech and censoring speech and what's harmful, what's not harmful. Well, here's this from Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins.
You don't have the right to harm other people with your words, and you don't have the right to say things that have really negative, really horrible meanings. When you want people to destroy Israel, that matters. You don't have the right to harm other people.
So did you catch that? We'll do it one more time.
You don't have the right to harm other people with your words, and you don't have the right to say things that have really negative, really horrible meanings. When you want people to destroy Israel, that matters. You don't have the right.
That it matters, man. First Amendment, dude, that was totally fine. Guys, the First Amendment, it was golden. We had it perfect. And then people started talking shit about Israel. And then we realized the fatal flaw on the First Amendment was that it didn't give protection for Jews. Guys, we will have our paradise as long as we eliminate the First Amendment. We just have to reform it to better protect the interests of the Jewish diaspora and Israel. I'm glad he added that snippet there at the end. And to be quite honest, if any person literally ever says words harm you, understand that they are living not in reality. They are either just the most delusioned individuals you've come across. They're women, or they are very, very evil, and they're lying to you to manipulate you. And that is what I think is the third one of Jay Collins. I don't really think Jay Collins is that much of an idiot. But I do think that he is being very, very manipulative. And I'm glad that whoever clipped this left the final bit in there too, about especially Israel, because that part's very important. I think that's what's obviously prescribing why he is saying what he's saying. And let me be honest, I think, well, there has been one time I've been harmed by words, and it was when my wife wouldn't stop talking, and I literally was like, I think I'm dying, dude. Like, we got to like minute 7, and I was like, dude, I'm dying. Like, I was like I was disassociating from everything. Next thing you know, I was becoming the couch. I was like, this is how it ends, huh? I just die in silence. Being berated, but I was getting hit by like a 50 BMG. It's like it wouldn't stop. Hopefully she's watching. But that's the point. I mean, it's like, you're not even conservative. Like, that is so far outside of the conservative framing of what we believe. I mean, it is so antithetical to just liberty to tout the belief that words and the voicing of sentiments can physically harm. Now, where I would actually add a caveat, which is what was touched upon a little bit in the Joel Webbon and Nick Fuentes video, would be things that would fall outside of the political speech realm, which would be like pornography, where people would have to argue that pornography is like kind of like a pure expression. And I would hear some of those arguments out. The only issue though is it's just degenerate, right? It's purely like, and even if it at its peak of its actual value is only transactionary in terms of producing a beneficial outcome for a woman who is doing degenerate things, all of which is, again, antithetical to the idea of a Christian nation, period. And so that's a whole different conversation there. But I guess, you could say that pornography, though, that would, not words, but the imagery, and then seeing someone seeing the imagery, that is harmful. physically harmful is like, could you die? If I flashed enough porn at somebody, would they like pass away? Like, no. Well, I mean, outside if they got like epilepsy or something, right? Like, but just from the porn itself, you're like, no, I think he had a stroke. It wasn't the porn. I think he just had a stroke. You 1,000 frames a second. But just to make that point though, you hear the words, speech is harmful. You have to run. You have to run 1,000 miles in the other direction, but not when it comes in the sense of restricting away of degeneracy. And I think that distinction does need to be made, because I think that will be a battle that'll be happening sooner than later, and it will be the pornography one. And especially because I think AI is driving it, and AI is going to make it start touching to home, and no one's going to like it when Feta, because here's the thing, is Gronk's a little bit ahead of time. But there will come very, very soon when Meta AI will be able to do it. All the different social media platforms will have some level of ability to do it, where you'll have an AI helper, an assistant, just like Grok is, that you'll be able to manipulate things in real time on the platforms themselves. And what happens when that hits Facebook and you have random trolls coming along and your grandma posts photos of your Christmas celebration and somebody says, at Meta, can you show this picture of everybody in bikinis? People are just like not going to stand for it. And so I would just expect the general outrage there will drive people to wanting to push harsher restrictions, specifically on pornography. But that needs to be where it stops. It can't be like anything beyond that. It has to be like making intentionally sexually explicit material of other individuals using AI. Like, it's got to be very, very specifically outlined. Because if it's anything more than that, we're going to get people who are like going to be getting sued because they're going to because they put Elon's face on like a fat guy's body. It's like, that's the stuff we got to avoid. Because they're going to start coming after memes and shit like that too. If we don't make it very specific. My belief level in government doing something that would be beneficial in that lens, 0 actually. So I'm just kind of hopefully like throwing that out there. But my belief level in that actually happening, 0, dude. It probably will be some gum fuckery of Luna, Anna, Polina, whatever, coming in and being like, we're just going to ban AI from regular people. The government can still use it though, but regular people can't have AI anymore. It's not the path we want to go down. And because too, dude, listen, we would wage a revolution if I couldn't make memes. Like, if they start banning memes, it's like, all right, then it is like acceleration, fundamentalism, nope, revolution. Actually, it's halfway a joke. What were some of the other ones here? Actually, forgive me, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place now. I just wanted to make sure I covered the fact that there was a series of Jews and Zionists, this Jay Collins dude who I literally didn't hear of until yesterday, who looks like a fat Jew anyways. All coming out at once, this trend happening at the same exact time, being very restrictive on free speech, and all hitting these different points. And then also, I mean, maybe it was all news to you guys too, that Facebook has a Jew department. And on top of everything, what you have is this broad story, again, going back to Nick Shirley, Somali fraud. People are irritated, rightly so. Trump threatens war with Iran. Now, Trump threatening war with Iran, specifically going back to that, the reason why that is just such a, like, holy F, is the way that it is worded. I mean, I'm not even lying to you. The way that it is worded, now, I should probably just go and grab it and put it on screen, to be honest. Let me go do that real quick. But the way that it's worded, because there's photos of it all over the place. The way that it's worded is basically like, if you do anything to those protesters, we're going to bomb the living F out of you. What? And again, that's why I referenced up the earlier statement too, which is, here it is. Sorry, I had to find it. If Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to the rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. And that's the crazy thing, because where's this level of care to the protests and all the domestic kind of civil unrest in our own country? Like, if we're going to bomb anybody, it's like, at least bomb Section 8 housing, like in Minneapolis and Ohio. Like, if this is the level of vitriol we have, the people who are like who are opposing the United States. Like, I think we got bigger threats in like all over the nation, actually, but Minnesota specifically. And here we are, threatening war. But yeah, won't rescue Americans though. Not even close. Not even close. Yeah, it is shoots. And that's how most people are. Oh man, I clicked the wrong one. Is it not shoots? Yeah, it is. This might have been the one that his handler didn't write. He wrote it himself in a flurry. Benjamin Netanyahu texted him at 2 a.m. He was like, I gotta do this right now. It is sad, man. It is sad in the sense that like there's nothing left of MAGA. Did I miss your super? My bad, brother. Oh, there it is. Charts out again. He says, feel like Zionist dispensationalists are the flat wheel on the wagon of Christendom. Let's trade everything for the chosen people that killed Jesus. Well, so this is the thing, and this is why the Zionist arc matters. And so this is kind of the way I framed it and with Chuck as well, too. Because what I think a lot of people end up leaving out, and that what they shouldn't leave out, forgive me, I probably didn't talk on the mic there, but a lot of people leave out and what they shouldn't leave out, when it comes to the control of, and I'll put this here so people know what I'm referencing, when it comes to the actual control element of like how did, because when you just tell somebody, like I walk up in the street randomly and I walk up to some random guy and I'm like, hey, did you know that Jews run America? They would look at me like I just watched, American X or something. You're like, this guy's insane because it's too much of a, it's too much. It's too away from their reality to look at as anything other than like a schizo walked up to them and said something to them they don't know what they're talking about. So it was a two-pronged approach. Everybody's very overtly familiar with Jeffrey Epstein and the blackmail operations and are loosely kind of have an idea of like what goes on there. And in the loose sense, like that's good to understand. And obviously it's sexual blackmail being the most prominent of everything. And it's not the only kind of blackmail, but that's kind of the top-down approach. But it's not the only approach. The other prong was the ground-up approach, because you can't simply just take a system from the top. You need to ensure and maintain the fact that there will always be support from the ground. Well, how did they do that? Well, they did that back in 1913, I believe, with the Schofield Bible. And everybody references the Schofield Bible, but everybody kind of always references Schofield. But Schofield himself was a degenerate. Schofield, and I'm speaking loosely on him because I think he's going to go down as doing one of the greatest disservices of all time. But Schofield makes this reference Bible, and this reference Bible has all these edits. And most famously, the most famous edit is the one where he reinterprets what the promise to Abraham is, which is what most people are familiar with. It's what Ted Cruz got annihilated on with his interview with Tucker Carlson. And it wasn't just Schofield. Schofield was put on by two other men. Largely one going by the name of Samuel Untermyer. Samuel Untermyer is largely, and again, this extreme Zionist between Samuel Untermyer and Louis Marshall. Louis Marshall, also somebody who was later, now that it's conflicting on this, but Louis Marshall is deemed as somebody who actually later eclipsed Samuel Untermyer. Regardless, these are two individuals who were extremely, extremely Zionist. And I'm forgetting the quote, it's escaping me, but there are especially strong instances of Louis Marshall being very specific about dwindling down. Like, understanding in the 1900s, Louis Marshall was pushing the idea that America wasn't a Christian nation. And so Louis Marshall and Samuel Untermyer, that's kind of what their vibe is. Untermyer being somebody who supposedly, allegedly, and I'm here to believe it, somebody who had basically essentially threatened one of the U.S. presidents with a bribe scheme that later got him installed. He installed a Supreme Court justice. It's kind of like this negotiation. You can the fuller length of that you can find the debate I had with Chuck when I was a lot more read up on it than where I'm at now. Although I should be strongly read up on that stuff. But that's the ground support. And so you get these three major figures, and it's not just them. They go out to Oxford. They get all these kind of weird individuals coming around, only to find out like the Oxford scholars that he worked alongside ended up later being a part of what you would consider like Illuminati parties, where they're like having like these massive raging sex orgies. But meanwhile, they're the scholars who just supposedly helped this pastor write his edits for the Schofield Bible. Schofield Bible later goes on the way it's written. Thank you, House. Untermyer blackmailed Woodrow Wilson. Thank you. Lord, dude, it's been a hot minute since I looked at it. And so you have this development occurring, but the major point being is what you end up getting is you get this Bible that's purely made, written, and designed to subvert the actual beliefs of Christianity and basically all of Christianity for the previous 2,000 years, and subvert it and pervert it to be essentially nothing more than worship of Jews in Israel. And they do that by the changing of the promise, which is why that is the most that's the most widely kind of zoomed in when people have an irritation of like the promise to Israel. That's what so many people are talking about, is that change there. Now, you could just quite frankly listen to any pastor with a who's worth their weight, and unfortunately those are increasingly becoming hard to find, but they will be able to explain to you, listen, like that is not the promise. That's not the promise that was made to Abraham. And then now I wish it wasn't escaping me now. And I need to be a stronger theologian here, but that was not the promise that was made to Abraham, right? And even Jesus later clarifies, I believe it's in, someone correct me if I'm wrong, it's in Galatians. It's in Galatians, it's like the full promise is recognized, but there's these different references brought through them. Ultimately, the point that you need to understand is that, well, the point of the Scofield Bible, though, was to change what that promise was, to ultimately provide the groundwell support for the Christian Zionists, the now hybrid belief system, so that there will always proverbially be a demographic and a base of support in the actual United States of America that are rooting for Israel, that combines with the top down of all the officials who are being blackmailed, so that it sandwiches that support there. So you have the ground up and the top down. Because if it was just from the ground up, it would be too weak. It would ultimately, you could get overridden without the random officials get in, voted in, and they would do whatever. You see ground swell support for a lot of things, and it doesn't happen. I mean, think about right now. The majority of America wants Somalians out of the country. Do you think we're going to get Somalians out of the country? No. Because there's obviously a disconnect between what the people want and what the government's willing to do. But from the top down, it can't just be from the top down, because if everybody starts noticing that nobody agrees with what's going on in the government, they're going to start to question it and go, hey, let's not do this anymore. Which is why it's been such a very obfuscated topic, because for the majority of most people's lives who don't dig too deep into it, they've always kind of understood, for as long as they've been alive, there's been a strong evangelical wing, Christian wing in America that has full head over heels support for Israel. But what happens, and what's been happening the last couple of years, is that all falls apart the more that the masses understand that what that promise on the groundswell support was based upon is a complete fabrication. And now that the groundswell support is losing, and we're in a kind of continual run every 24 hours, 7 days a week, what we're getting is nonstop humiliation of Dave Smith. He's mocking Josh Hamer. You have Nick Fuentes mocking Mark Levin. You have Steven Crowder. I mean, everybody's joining in on it now. They've lost that. And there's nothing they can do to defend it. Otherwise, they would be. Otherwise, you would see Ben Shapiro writing about the Scofield Bible and how it's correct. But he's not, because it's indefensible. And so what they do is they're moving to these other different positions. They do move to these ad hominem attacks, character denigrations, greatest clips, right? Oh, he said this about the Holocaust. And that's why they're kind of convulsing. And that's why you're seeming to see like different strategies here and there. It seems like they're not even on the same page. Like they're almost in disagreement of how can we maintain this? We're about to lose it. Hopefully, that also is illuminating to you guys when you see people like Tim Pool concerning himself with going to a secret meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu that is entirely predicated upon how can we repair and rebuild what is about to be the biggest loss of support, U.S.-based support for Israel in the history of history. Because they know the end is awaiting them and it's right around the corner. Because you can't lose the groundswell support and then expect that you will force things from the top down, because look at what that's already doing to Trump. I mean, Trump in less than 12 months has become an enemy number one to the public. And the majority of those people were people who voted for him less than 8 months ago. The jig is up. And we are kind of basically just watching, like, it feels like almost like a Mexican standoff. Are we going to get what feels like, and I feel like what may come is they're going to push for some extreme clampdown of censorship, which is what I partly see with the random trend appearing of like, you can ask Grok to take the clothes off of any photo of any woman ever, and it'll do it. I see stuff like that and I go, are they going to use that to induce a mass panic to people that this thing needs cleaned up immediately, no questions asked? We can't really concern ourselves with the smaller nuanced arguments. We just have to get it done right away because people's lives are at stake here. And AI can take your clothes off virtually. Now, granted, I don't think that's a good thing, but still, that may be enough to induce people to pushing for something like that. Also, similarly, seeing that with what the immediate fallout of Charlie Kirk, you had, and rightfully so, I'm not going to say the anger was misplaced at all, but rightfully so, directly after the Charlie Kirk thing, they go, you know what we should do? Any leftists who said anything about Christians, let's throw them in jail. It's like, for the time being, like, you're like, hey, dude, honestly, like, based. But when you come to your senses and you're like, we can't do that because the moment that the roles are reversed and we're not in power anymore, we know how that's going to get played out. So let me actually take you to this. I actually didn't have this in the outline, but it's perfect for the line of thought I'm in right now, which is I wrote this quote tweet earlier today because Kyle Seraphin, and somebody again who I'm not a big fan of, but I'll take any ass. I don't care whose piece is on the board. If it's helping me, I like it. Kyle Seraphin with a 30-second clip of Pam Bondi, and she's on the Katie Miller podcast. Again, Katie Miller podcast. Stephen Miller's wife. Jewish. Okay. Why is Pam Bondi on her podcast and not putting people in jail? I have no idea. Don't ask me. Talking about what? What are they going to do in 2026? We're going to clamp down on hate speech. I kid you not. I was blown away. Take a listen to this. And this is what I quoted too. I said, Epstein pales in comparison to how many people this government needs to rape. But here's this video here. This is what Pam Bondi concerns herself next year. And also, I apologize. Let me get this chat out of here.
Place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see
girl boss? Oh my Lord, man. And that's their concern. That's the concern. It's not the fraud. It's not the deportations. It's hate speech. It's what people are saying about Jews and Indians and Charlie Kirk. That is what every American wakes up and thinks to themselves, man, how much better would my day be if random people online didn't talk about how Jews run our world. Anything less at this point, then all women need to be excised from politics, period. I will take nothing less than that. Now, people hear me say this all the time, but I find it to be a very instrumental element in what has gone on in our society. And please don't take this as like, I hate women. And I hate that I have to even say that liberal phrase. Hold on, let me here's a preamble, here's a caveat, but I don't. I literally don't. What I do hate, though, is everybody pretending like women can do shit that men can do. Like people pretending that there's not like 10 million red-blooded American men who would not be doing a better job as AG right now than her. Like, that's what I hate. I hate when people pretend. I hate when people pretend, people lie, and people think that we can treat something like the Attorney General of the United States of America as trivial as we are right now. I don't give a shit about Pam Bondi's feelings. I don't care about her friends. I don't care about her journey, her struggle. I don't care that people lied to her in her entire life that she could be a man. Don't give a shit. Don't care. I care about what is right. And I think ultimately, if you cared about what is doing right too, you would also honor the words of our Lord Jesus Christ in what is known, what is natural, what you don't have to seek out to find, which is that women were not designed by God to be placed in positions of leadership, to divvy out decisions, to contemplate large-scale visions, to contemplate long-term consequences. None of that. This is why I made that point earlier. Like, I will approve of nothing in the judicial department until we clean up the fact that it is I mean, think about how what a disservice it would be if you were being tried in a case as a white man and you defended yourself against a black person or whatever, and you get a woman judge. I mean, can you think of anything more demoralizing than showing up and seeing the person walk out of the hall and your judge is a white liberal woman, or just a liberal woman in general, just a black chick? It's over, dude. I would turn over to a defense attorney and say, "Hey, dude, you're off the clock, man. I'm not paying you for this next hour. I'm cooked, dude. It's over for me." They get one-shotted by consensus. They are way too agreeable, and they clearly are also victims of their own emotions. We are not getting the country back until there are no women judges. And just seeing off of the Somalian fraud story, the 3 different judges who separated the one singular case, and all of a sudden all 3 of the people who were involved in the case all got their charges dismissed. But somehow $14 million somehow found its way to them, and no kids were taken care of, and no autism was treated. Victimless crime, I guess. It's just, I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir, though, to be honest with you. I think most people probably here understand that. And that's the one thing I would say, too, while I'm on that topic. Here's another one, obviously, because the ethos arguments have been blowing around, and I think a lot of anger is still in the water, especially because of, we just came off of, Chud and Beardson had a little bit of a tiff. That might still be going. I haven't been paying attention to it. Then you also have now all of the rehabbing, if you will, or the revisiting of Joel Webbon's previous beefs with people like, again, Stone Choir, and those who are a lot, what they would consider Joel Webbon and Nick moderates. I've already seen the tweets come out. And what are we doing? Well, we're already arguing again. And you guys might remember Netter, right? What was Netter? No enemies to the right. That lasted all of about 7.5 hours before everybody on the right wing started again bashing each other. And like I said the last show, I'm going to be like a black person. I would defend my kind to the very end. I will not snitch. I'm not going to join in. I'm not going to open a gate to anything. Nope. What's that guy? Oh, he did something. Oh, he's white. Not doing it. Not doing it. Because we can't just talk the talk. We got to walk the walk. And one of those elements has been, and you agree with it, disagree or not, one of those elements has been, we have got to either start adapting to how the other groups treat and have their own group preferences, or suffer, or continually watch as we sit here and be the only group that tolerates everything. So that, in my opinion, for one thing for me, it's like, I'm going to not participate in any of that, the drama. I'm not going to do it. But obviously, this Joel Webbon and Nick Fuentes thing has stirred up more of this infighting. People from the Stone Choir crowd, people who are just anti-griper, and I just sit there and I go, I don't get it. At the end of the day, I just don't. I don't understand the purpose. I don't understand how seeing clips like that can just immediately invoke a response from people. But maybe I'm just not that emotional. It's not me taking shots at anybody at all. To me, it is so utterly not even unnecessary, but it is just so utterly pointless to be partaking in. But alas. And with that, though, there was another story I had seen too. There was another story about the Indian college degree scam, which has got being reported on now, which I believe they had confiscated over about 1 million fake degrees from India, which I'd seen some posts previously about, but there was a degree farm if you will, where they're basically fraud, forging a bunch of these fake degrees, and a lot of these people ended up here on H-1Bs. And so, it's fraud on fraud. Not only is it these people shouldn't even belong here, but their credentials are fake. And a lot of this to say we got to start ultimately walking the walk. And that has to be seen not only just digitally, but also like IRL as well. And so obviously people can agree on different paths forward. I would just say this, like, there is like no point. To me, the worst thing that we could participate in is like, I'm going to go to a guy who is like 2.5 inches to the right of me. I'm going to start a fight. Meanwhile, the guys who are 4,000 miles to the left of us are like winning, they're raking in all the victories, and we're like fighting over pennies. It's like, it almost feels Jewish. I can't. I don't know. I don't want to do it. I don't want to participate in it, and I'm done. Like, I'm not going to do it. It to me, I can't do it, honestly. Like, I've always been somebody who's been very convicted and very just like hard to shy away from principles. I can't do it, man. I just can't. So if you're expecting to see some like, oh, and here's a 7-part series of drama between Beardson and Stonechoir, it's just not happening, dude. Don't give a shit at all. I actually have a daughter, and I'm very concerned actually with making sure that this country is everything I want it to be before I see the pearly gates. You know what I mean? That's kind of where my concern comes in. Obviously Trump threatening war with Iran, and one thing I would kind of finally end on with the Trump threatening war with Iran would be this. A video that I had set out that I didn't finish, that ultimately may be time to revisit, is that we do need to start treating Israel like it's Great Britain. In the sense that when the founding fathers overthrew Great Britain and the tyrants they were under, they recognized it to be a very specific thing, an entity, an other. And Israel already shares a lot of these kind of similar parallels with it. And I think one of the easiest ones is across the pond. This is a foreign nation that's not present in our everyday lives, but seemingly exerts an exuberant amount of influence here. Although they don't live here, they don't participate in what we do here, but they want to have us do things for their benefit. Now, granted, the Great Britain in the United States colonies was like, verbatim, like vassal, they were colonies. I mean, it literally was a colony. Now, whereas we are supposed to be two sovereign nations, exorbitant, thank you. Now, we are supposedly supposed to be two different sovereign nations. But that's not how it feels, obviously. And that needs to be the thread that's pushed, which is welcome to the Great Britain 2.0. Israel. How did America find itself in the same position it was in before the revolution occurred? Look at the way this nation exerts its influence. Look at the way that it wants to contort and violate rights at the behest of whatever its interests may be, however marginal those interests may be. It does not care what man, woman, or child it crushes, what hopes and dreams it crushes, what American interest it violates. As long as it benefits the foreign nation, it goes. And so that's got to be where the push is at. Like, we oppose Israel because Israel has become, in essence, everything that the founding fathers hated about Great Britain. And it is increasingly coming to a point, and most people would agree, that we feel that we have no representation in our own government. We feel that despite all of the pleas, the cries, the voting systems that half people don't even believe in anymore, is all a performance to placate the belief that these votes mean anything. And there's increasingly feeling like there is a foreign government, a foreign peoples, a foreign interest, a foreign religion that has co-opted everything and now is directing itself and our resources, our people, our blood away from our own benefit. And I think that's it's a very, easy kind of infographic, like, wow, the boomers really like that. But I think that's the line that's got to be pushed. It has to be pushed that these people don't belong here, but they try to dictate everything, and they have all this exorbitant, out of control. I can't believe I missed those two words up. I appreciate the correction. But alas, most people already know this. And two other things before I sign off. One, there was an insane Reddit post that stuck out to me just because I had previously done work for DoorDash and Uber, and I hated it. But I'd have to probably have to bring my wife in on this one. But the amount of stories I have from doing stuff with Uber and DoorDash that I literally felt like it was being manipulated in real time to prevent me from making more money was insane. It was off the charts. And if you go to these Reddits and these different kind of forums and stuff from people who are DoorDashers and people who do all the dashing and stuff, as long as they're white Americans, they will agree. There's these weird things that happen. Today there was an insane Reddit post that's been highly upvoted. I don't know. I think it's still being checked if it's verified or corroborated, but supposedly an engineer who works on, I believe, DoorDash put this massive post out, and he said, he's like, I'm sorry, I can't hold my tongue any longer, and laid out how the system, literally, it manipulates people into believing it does certain things, and how it fucks over drivers, and it pulls money from people, and it legally steals tips. And you have to imagine that stuff's probably been happening for a hot minute. But when I just saw that, I was like, I didn't need the post to know. And quite frankly, I think a lot of us need to be a bit better at trusting our own intuition, trusting our gut. And there was something I even heard Alex Jones say the other day. He was like, I should have listened to my gut the first time. True. Preach, man. And the other one I would add too is this, and going to be doing a bit of defending Zohran Mamdani today, but you'll understand. Bernie Sanders was the person who swore in Zohran Mamdani today, or yesterday, I believe, a couple days ago. And what does he get sworn in on? Well, similarly, just like Kash Patel, this Browno didn't do it on the Bible. Kash did it on the Bhagavad Gita, the book of the demon Saiyans, or whatever it's called. It's 1,000 arms, and they throw cow poop at each other and shit. Zohran Mamdani swore in on the Quran. Obviously, that is a disdain, or not disdain, but that is just a disgrace to America and the public. But what I would say, though, is at least I expected that from him. At least Zohran Mamdani is doing what his own side, his own tribe would want him to be doing, right? He took his own side. He said, I'm not going to do that because that's not my religion. I'm going to do what my religion is. Obviously, the inverse isn't present, but it's still a disgrace. And now we're it should have been, calls to water the tree of liberty when Kash Patel did it, and you're going to get even less of a reaction now that Zohran's doing it. And I think it's just, the answer is clear, man. There's not enough warm-blooded white American men who are capable or competent enough to really, honestly, meaningfully do anything. It's not to say to black pill. It is to say, though, I think that we have underestimated how dwindled out we might have been in terms of the overall capability. Not to say give up at all. Don't take it as black pill. But it's to say, when I see the Walmart example, like when I go to Walmart and I see the state of just man in general, it's not a very convincing picture to paint when someone's going, and then we're going to do this to the government, and then we're going to do this. And it's like, dog, you need help getting to aisle 3 with the Walmart scooter. But I do think that the general kind of base level of irritation has been solidified in Gen Z. And I think regardless of what may even happen, moving into the future, I think Nick Fuentes his avatar has been captured by the youth. And I think that's honestly a great and beautiful thing. But with that brings us to basically the end of what I was going to ultimately cover today. Only other thing would have been the January 6th, the statute of limitations, which was insane. But that's just the fact that Pam Bondi's not going to do anything. All of the prosecutions that could be taking place on everything related to January 6th just simply isn't going to happen because we only have 5 days left before we run out of the statute of limitations. And man, what can you do against the eternal, unwavering, unrelenting force that is the statute of limitations? And that's again to show you we need a strong executive. We need people who are not going to be binded with their hands tied and be limp-wristed, because we're getting very dangerously close to lose the nation completely, if we didn't already. But I have hope in the fact that Joel Webbon and Nick are continuing to push in the right direction. I have hope with the fact that there are seemingly more and more men coming out. And that's why I mean, no enemies to the right, no enemies to the white is what it should be. Like Clav, anybody, I don't care. I don't care what small disagreements we may have. That is an autistic brother going hard in the paint, dude. Like, more of that, please. More white men with confidence who will stick it to women and who isn't afraid of blacks. I'll take that. Whatever forms it comes in, whether it comes in green, red, blue, don't give a shit. I'll take more of it because we need more of it. Because we're not changing the social fabric unless we get more of guys like that. More people out and about in the space, unafraid, unapologetically white, period. Didn't like it, I'm all for him. Yeah, dude, listen, I will, anybody that falls into that space. Somebody even like Asmongold as well too, although he's a bit more liberal, but it's like, push white men being vocal, push white men pushing their own interests, all of it, any of it, push. It's SpongeBob, I mean, push from Patrick. Anything to get white men to build muscles and say the N-word. That's funny. And that is part of it. You know, white men do need to, not all around, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, physically, all of it. We got to step up. We must return. But that is pretty much everything I wanted to cover today. Apologize, these have been a bit shorter than normal, but I am coming back into the flow tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be doing with Josh. There's no group report tomorrow. I may do something earlier in the day with a stream. If I do, I will announce it in Discord and on X. You'll see that. If not, it'll probably just be a shorter video I'll do before I head out to go meet up with Josh. And then Sunday show with NAV is also up in the air. Not in terms of even just like happening on Sunday, but it may be getting moved to Monday, and we may have some strong changes happening to the Sunday show. We will see. And with that, we may be getting some episodes out. You guys might not know this, but I went to college with a bunch of creators. I think I've talked about this a couple of times. Well, one of the guys I went with, one of my literal best friends in college, he now works for Mr. Beast, and he is one of the top guys who does work for Mr. Beast. He offered me to take part in the challenge for it. I turned him down immediately. I was like, I don't want to do that. But we might get a podcast going that's going to be completely different from where this kind of is, but a bit more in the kind of the creator space between me and a bunch of other creators, people who are up on the levels of being producers of Mr. Beast. And so that'll be exciting. It'll just be a bit different from what I normally do. Tom Foe shouted me out. I appreciate that. Tom Foe, I put this in the Discord. Tom, I'm going to be reaching out to probably later tonight or in the morning tomorrow to get him brought on to NAV and see what we can do there and see what his schedule looks like and to see what where he would like to kind of fill in and drop in and what kind of content that we can do together. Somebody also in Discord who connected us, and Tom Foe, I don't know how I came across Tom. I think it was an X or something. Can't remember. But I do love his videos. He makes some great thumbnails. He has some amazing, like, very consistent thumbnails. And I think that's partly what's really been popping him off for him is that animation style. It's really good. Yeah, shout out Tom Foe. Follow him if you haven't been following him already. Subscribe to him, obviously. But with that, guys, Christ is King. As always, it might have been Hook, actually. Good job, Tix. Christ is King. As always, seek first the kingdom of God. Everything else pales in comparison. You gotta write that ship first. And deport Kash Patel, jail him at this point, deport Pam Bondi to I don't know where, chain her to a kitchen somewhere. If she ends up in Dagestan, that's fine. She gets 3 feet from the sink, no further. And we need a new tier system for women. Anything above 75 pounds is overweight. And if you're overweight, you must face the wall. I'm just messing, but God willing, as long as we maintain, we keep pushing, we keep the pressure on, we keep getting smarter, we keep getting more learned, more well-read, we keep becoming more Christian, and we keep becoming more white. God willing, we will save this country. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out.